The truth was sitting right in front of them. Laughing. Eating dinner. Living in the same house. And they had no idea. Detective Sarah Mitchell stared at the board on the wall. Photos. Clues. Notes. All connected by red lines. "We're missing something," she said. Her partner, Detective James Carter, sighed. "We've been over this case 10 times. Sarah shook her head. "No. Something's off." Behind them. Someone walked into the room. Calm. Relaxed. Like nothing was wrong. "Dinner's ready," he said. Sarah turned. Smiled. "Thanks, Daniel." Daniel smiled back. Friendly. Normal. Just like always. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Daniel wasn't just their roommate. He was the one they were looking for. And right now, he was standing inside the investigation. Watching it. Listening to it. Learning from it. James stood up. "Finally. I'm starving." Daniel laughed lightly. "Long day." James nodded. "You have no idea." Daniel glanced at the board. At the photos. At the evidence. His eyes moved slowly. Carefully. Taking it all in. Then he said something simple. "Any progress?" Sarah sighed. "Not yet." Daniel nodded. Like he expected that answer. "Maybe tomorrow," he said. But his voice was too calm. Too certain. Because he already knew something they didn't. He knew. They wouldn't find him. Not yet. Not while he was right here. Inside their home. Inside their case. Inside their lives. And just as Sarah turned back to the board, Daniel's smile faded. For just a second. Because one of the photos had changed. Someone had moved it. And it wasn't him. 3 weeks earlier, everything had been simple. Sarah and James were assigned a new case. At first, it didn't look different. Just another investigation. Another mystery. But then, the details started to feel strange. No clear pattern. No clear reason. Just pieces. Small pieces. That didn't fit together. "Something's wrong here," Sarah said during their first meeting. James nodded. "Yeah. It doesn't feel random." That was the problem. Nothing about the case felt random. But nothing connected either. They needed help. More eyes. More support. That's when Daniel came in. He wasn't a detective. He wasn't part of the case. He was just someone looking for a place to stay. A friend of a friend. Temporary. That's what he said. "I won't be in the way," Daniel told them. "I just need somewhere quiet." Sarah had agreed. James didn't mind. It seemed simple. Easy. Safe. And Daniel fit right in. He was polite. Helpful. Quiet. He cooked. He cleaned. He stayed out of their work. Or at least, that's what they thought. Because when they weren't looking, Daniel was watching. Listening. Learning. Every detail. Every clue. Every mistake. Late at night, while they slept, Daniel would sit in the living room, looking at the board, studying it, like it was his. Because in a way, it was. This was his story, his plan, his work, and they were trying to solve it, without knowing he was right there, inside it. One night, Daniel stood in front of the board, alone, silent. His eyes moved from one photo to another. Then, he reached out, moved one of them, just slightly, changed its position. A small adjustment. Almost nothing. But enough. Enough to shift the direction. Enough to lead them. Away from him. The next morning, Sarah noticed. "Did you move this?" she asked James. James frowned. "No." Sarah stared at it. "That's not where it was." James shrugged. "Maybe we just forgot." But Sarah didn't look convinced. Because something about it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like someone had touched it. Someone careful. Someone quiet. Someone who knew what they were doing. That thought stayed with her. All day. All night. even when she tried to ignore it. But she couldn't. Because deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Meanwhile, Daniel watched. From the kitchen. From the hallway. From the shadows of the room. Always close. Always listening. And always one step ahead. Days passed. The case got harder. More confusing. More frustrating. Why can't we figure this out? James said one evening. Sarah shook her head. It's like someone's guiding us the wrong way. Daniel paused. Just for a second. Because that was closer than she realized. He turned slowly. What do you mean? He asked. Sarah sighed. I don't know. It just feels like every time we get close, something changes. Daniel nodded. Thinking. Carefully. Maybe you're looking too hard, he said. James laughed. That's the job. Daniel smiled. Sometimes the answer is simple. Sarah looked at him. What do you mean? Daniel shrugged slightly. Maybe the person you're looking for isn't far away. Sarah held his gaze for a moment. Then shook her head. No. That would be too easy. Daniel smiled again. Yes, he said softly. Too easy. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Something kept bothering her. That feeling again. The same one from before. She got up. Walked into the living room. The board was still there. Silent. Waiting. She stepped closer. Looked at the photos. The notes. The lines. Then, she noticed it again. Another change. Small. But real. Something had moved. And this time, she knew. She hadn't imagined it. Someone was touching the evidence. Inside their home. Sarah's heart began to race. Because now, there was only one question left. Who? She turned slowly. Looking around the room. Everything was quiet. Everything looked normal. But it wasn't. Because someone was right there. Watching her. And just as she took a step back, a floorboard creaked behind her. The floorboard creaked. Right behind her. Sarah froze. Her heart started beating fast. Slowly. She turned around. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Dark. Silent. But she knew what she heard. That wasn't the house settling. That was a step. Someone had been there. Watching her. She swallowed. James. She called softly. No answer. She looked toward his room. The door was closed. No movement. No sound. Sarah took a slow step forward. Then another. Her eyes scanning every corner. Every shadow. Every small detail. Because now, she wasn't just thinking. She was sure. Someone had been inside this room. Just seconds ago. And they didn't want to be seen. She turned back to the board. Looking at the photos again. Trying to figure it out. Trying to connect it. What are you missing? She whispered. Her eyes moved slowly across the evidence. Then stopped. Because something clicked. Not fully. Not clearly. But enough. Enough to make her uneasy. It's not random, she said quietly. It's controlled. Behind her. A door opened. Sarah jumped slightly. Then turned quickly. Daniel stood there. Rubbing his eyes. Like he had just woken up. Everything okay? He asked. Sarah stared at him. For a second too long. Then nodded. Yeah, just couldn't sleep. Daniel stepped into the room. Looked at the board. Still thinking about the case. Sarah crossed her arms. Always. Daniel nodded. That's how you solve things. Sarah watched him carefully. Because now, she wasn't just seeing Daniel. She was studying him. His movements. His voice. His timing. You didn't hear anything? She asked. Daniel tilted his head slightly. Hear what? Sarah hesitated. Then shook her head. Nothing. Daniel smiled softly. Old houses make noise. Sarah didn't respond. Because she didn't believe that. Not anymore. Daniel walked closer to the board. Looking at it. Just like he always did. But this time. Sarah noticed something different. His eyes. They didn't move randomly. They followed the connections. The exact lines. The exact clues. Like he already knew them. Like he had seen them before. Sarah's chest tightened. "How do you know where to look?" she asked suddenly. Daniel paused. Just for a second. Then smiled. "Lucky guess." Sarah didn't smile back. "Doesn't look like a guess." Daniel turned to her. Calm. Relaxed. "It's just patterns," he said. "Anyone can see them." Sarah nodded slowly. Maybe. But inside, something was changing. Something was starting to connect. And she didn't like where it was going. Daniel stepped away from the board. "Try to get some rest," he said. "You'll think clearer in the morning." Sarah watched him leave the room. Listened to his footsteps fade away. Then, silence again. She turned back to the board. Stared at it. Long. Hard. Because now, she wasn't just looking for answers. She was looking for mistakes. And slowly, very slowly, she started to see them. Not in the evidence, but in the movement. Things shifting. Clues changing. Patterns breaking. Like someone was adjusting the story. Guiding it. Controlling it. Her breathing slowed. Because now, there was only one way that could happen. Someone close. Someone inside. Someone watching everything. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. Because there weren't many people who had access. Just her. Just James. She froze. Because she didn't want to think it. But the thought came anyway. Daniel. She shook her head quickly. "No, that's crazy." But was it? She turned toward the hallway. Looked at his door. Closed. Quiet. Normal. Too normal. Her mind raced. "Think," she whispered. "What do you actually know about him?" She tried to remember. Where he came from. Who he knew. What he told them. But suddenly, it all felt unclear. Vague. Like pieces missing. Like something she never questioned before. But should have. Sarah took a step back. Because now, this wasn't just a theory. This was a possibility. And if it was true, then the person they were looking for was living with them. Sleeping under the same roof. Watching every move they made. Her heart started racing again. Because that meant he knew everything. Every lead. Every plan. Every step ahead. Sarah grabbed her phone. Hands shaking slightly. She started typing. Running a quick search. Looking up Daniel. Name. Details. Anything. The screen loaded. Then, results appeared. And her breath caught. Because something didn't match. The name. The history. It didn't line up. Not fully. Like pieces were missing. Or changed. Or hidden. "No," she whispered. Her fingers moved faster. Digging deeper. Searching more. And the more she looked, the worse it got. Nothing about him was clear. Nothing was solid. It was like he didn't exist the way he said he did. Sarah slowly lowered the phone. Because now, the truth was getting closer. Too close. She turned toward his door again. Stared at it. Long. Silent. Then, she made a decision. She walked toward it. Step by step. Slow. Careful. Her hand reached the handle. She paused. Because opening that door would change everything. But not opening it wasn't an option anymore. She turned the handle slowly. The door creaked open. Dark inside. No lights. No movement. Sarah stepped in. "Daniel," she said softly. No answer. She moved further inside. Her eyes adjusting to the darkness. Then, she saw it. On the wall. Photos. Notes. Strings. Just like their board. But bigger. More detailed. More complete. Her heart stopped. Because this was the real version. This was the truth. And in the center, there was one photo. One face. Connected to everything. Sarah stepped closer. Hands shaking. And then, she saw it clearly. It was Daniel. And behind her, the door clicked shut.